Hey guys, Shaken Reality here, and in this one I'm going to show you how to integrate our Prone plugin into Advanced Locomotion System v4. So the first thing you're going to want to do is enable the plugin and install the plugin to the correct engine version. And once you're the plugin enabled, we can continue from there. Another way to do that would be just to put it in a plugins folder. Otherwise, you'll find it in the engine plugin folder. So without further ado, we will get into this. First thing I'm going to do, since the skeletons are the same, we can easily come into the content folder and in animations, or actually we'll need to come into demo, meshes, character, mesh, and we'll delete our skeleton and we will replace with the ALS mannequin skeleton. Replace references, save all that. And now fix the pre-directors. So all of our animations should now, if you right click them, they update. So now they're working with the ALS skeleton. Everything looks fine there. Just checking the fingers. Yep, the fingers seem to be having their minor movements when they're opening and closing there. Everything looks good. And another thing about this is that we'll also get our curves and not have to recreate those later, like you would in most projects. So that's a good bonus for this one. Now we're going to want to open up the prone components character. So we'll go into demo character and open the third person character here. And we can close this plugins folder. If you have it open, advanced locomotion, blueprints, character logic, and ALS based character BP. So the first thing we're going to do here is reparent our parent class to DPL character. And you'll notice that after you compile and save that, you'll have a new movement component here, which has access to prone adjustments in it now. And we'll also want to add our prone component. And I want to come over to a third person character. We have a few things. All these are going to have errors because we're not using inputs in this project. And the first thing I want to do is these two inputs specifically need to be added to your inputs. So we'll open up our project settings, action mapping. Roll left and roll right. Roll left Q, roll right it's E. And now when we come back here, we can compile. See that those inputs are all good. So firstly, we're just going to copy these, go to our player input graph, paste these over here. So now we'll have the inputs for crouching, prone, rolling and stuff. Prone check right here on the jump. So just gonna look for the jump action. And for this one, we can simply put this here. And if we are prone, we can just copy this, Control C. And uncrouch. And move on to the left input. Let's delete that. This is out of the way. Copy these nodes here in the blue. Let's move left, right, I believe. Look left, right. So let's drag this input out. Control V to paste in these prone checks and the movement. Yeah, let's move left, right, not look left, right. So we do not want this for the look left, right. We want for the move left, right. You can simply just unplug this here. Plug it in right there like that. And we want our forward and right axes, so we can come into this player movement copy. And this one will be our right vector. And finally plug this in right here. So now I'll check if we're prone. Also plug the axes map in here. So left right movement. Forward and backwards. Grab that here. Just delete that. We're gonna want this thing, so Control C to copy that. I'm gonna use forward vector this time. Plug in the axes value. And you can also go in there and get the move forward / backwards, and that will give us the axes value. Make it a little more neat. You do the same thing right here. Just so it's actually a little bit neater. You can organize that yourself. 2 of these will be in there. So if you're prone, you'll do the prone input. Otherwise, you'll do your default input. Same thing forward, true, prone movement, false, any other default move that you wouldn't be normally doing. You guys can organize that any way you wish. Sure, there's people have different ways of doing that. And here's the look left, right. Let's go double check, move forward. Yep, look left, right. Simply just copy this over here. Turn left, right. Control C. Control V to paste it in. Break this. Can also get this from here. Easy peasy. And we will connect that in here. And if we're not prone, we will do our normal inputs. Otherwise, we are dealing with our inputs here for prone. Let you organize that, and I believe that is all the inputs that we need. One more thing I want to do is we want to come into prone turn. And we will we'll come back to this actually when I'm doing the rotate in place. If you don't want rotate in place, you don't need this check. You can just have your normal input here. This is specifically for rotating in place. Just so you know. And now that we have that done, that should be everything with the player for now. Close out of this guy, open up this guy, compile, everything's good to go. Ever jumps, or default movements, move forward and backwards and left and right if you want that. Something we're going to want to quickly do so it doesn't interfere with some of our inputs. Z, we can just disable that. You won't need that in an actual game scenario. A lot of these are just debugging. You just delete all these. And there's also the switch the overlay states. I'm just going to disable that for now. You can switch it to another input or do whatever you want with that. This is all finished. We can deal with our animation blueprint. So, advanced locomotion, character assets, ALS anim BP. And we will come down here, animations, and we will need this third person anim BP. There's a couple of things we gotta move in here. Two of these we want the stance switching because we need to be able to tell if we're in prone or not. So you want to copy this and update graph. I'm gonna slip that in here. I don't want to delete this because there's already an ALS stance, and just drag out and promote this. You can replace this. I would suggest replacing the ALS stance with this stance. So everywhere in the character, just basically replace the variable and put the prone component one in there because it's easier to access from the prone component than it is to send from the character to the prone component, the stance. And now I'm just going to create a prone stance value, which is all it's really used for in this scenario. Compile that. And we'll also need to create a prone component ref. And replace our character reference with the one that's actually supposed to be for the LS project. So if our character is valid, we will check to see if our prone component is valid. If it's not, it will set it and then it will quickly loop back through again. Since it's updating, running on tick. And then we'll set the stance. Now we want the, actually I'll just set up this first. So now that we have that done, we want to come into our anim graph. First I'll just copy this prone locomotion input. Paste that here. I'm just going to create that variable. Specifically, if we want rotate in place, we'll want that. It'll also allow you to rotate your head, I guess. We'll break this. And we'll name this pose. You can also name it like default locomotion or something like that, since that's what it's handling. And we can just simply come back into our third person. Copy this. Paste that in. We don't want to replace this stance with the correct one. We actually want our prone stance here. Prone locomotion over here for that, and anything else we will just use our ALS locomotion. And finally we will plug this into our final pose. Here we go. Next thing we're going to want to do test here. So we hit the ZAD input, should enter prone, start crawling. I'm putting in over this stand. So enter, and this is the turn rate issue, just nothing to worry about this very moment. Everything we'll fix that in one moment. Okay, so now that we have that done, we will want to come into our prone turn. So we'll go to our character, look left, right, and go over to this prone turn like we did before. You might have it already open to here. And I'm going to make a quick change here. I'm going to drag out, and I'm going to get ALS and BP. And we don't need to have this cast into it every time, so we can actually promote this to a variable. So be our ANBP ref. And let's delete that for now. And now we will drag out and get it's valid. So we don't need to set it every single time it comes through. It'll only set it if it is not valid, so otherwise it will just run through if it is valid. It's not good. We will set this variable from here. And we'll get the root yaw offset, hold control, and you can drag this node down, plug it in. It's replacing the root yaw offset there. It's the one we need. And there we go, now it's getting that from our MVP. And we'll stop getting spam with errors from this point. But the root control turn in place will actually need an extra function here. So we'll come in here, plus always prone rotate in place. Just want to copy everything that's in this turn in place function. Come over here, paste that in. Now for this, when you're creating the variables, if it says local, you want to create a local variable, and otherwise create it as a normal variable. Drag this in here. The target will be a character reference. Local. 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 Not. Local variables, by the way, are only used by this function. You can't call them outside this, and it's just for temporarily storing this value instead of having to drag it up here and plug this in here and plug this over here. I could also just call local I could call that right there and set it up there. And allows me just to easily clean up inside of a blueprint. Max turn angle, we're actually going to want to, I'm just going to compile, I might get an error. Set that to 25. And local compile. No more errors. Now we have our turn in place. We'll go back to our update graph. And we will just place this prone rotate in place right here. And we can get our character reference. Now I have 3 of these connected. Everything's compiling. I'm also gonna on success only, so that now when I compile, if there's no errors, it'll automatically save it as well. And now if we are to hit play, should be able to enter prone. And if you hold in aiming, so you're in looking direction or aiming, then you'll be able to hit the clamp here and you'll rotate in place. Movement should work, should be able to roll. So definitely gonna want to deal with some of those inputs. That should be everything for this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave those in the comments below or join our Discord. And thanks, and I'll see you all in the next one.